I woke up to red flags biting into the dirt, where I learned to skip stones, a dotted vein of bright fabric marching toward Willow Run like it had paperwork for a heartbeat. 3 men in vests talking over me on my own porch, with that clipped tone people use when they think a lanyard makes them bulletproof. The badges looked like costumes, the smiles like decals you peel and stick, and something in me that used to swallow things. Criticism, condescension, that old habit of letting louder folks define the room, stood up anyway and said, "Not today." If you've ever watched Stranger's Inventory, a place that carries your family's footprints, you know that ripple in your ribs when anger and disbelief shake hands. You know what I mean. My name's Jordan Hale. I draw lines for a living, roads, pads, the kind of boundaries the world runs on when nobody's grandstanding. And after my divorce, I came back to Pine Hollow, took the spare room at my granddad's place off County Road 7, told myself I'd keep my head down, just the porch and the creek, and the kind of quiet that sounds like a promise. That morning, I did the reasonable thing called. The sheriff paced with my coffee while the crew planted flags near our garden, like they were pre-writing a demolition. Watched a deputy roll up chat with them 5 minutes, then tell me it was a civil HOA thing, not criminal, which is the kind of sentence that shrinks your voice and sends you home with nothing but a file number and a bad taste. I headed down the slope anyway and asked for authorization. The clipboard guy said, "Environmental assessment for Pine Meadow HOA, like we were roommates," and he was borrowing my truck, handed me a flyer with seals that weren't quite right, fonts off, margins weird, the kind of forgery that bets on confidence to cover its glue. Then my granddad, Earl Whitaker, stepped out slow. 78 and steady disappeared inside. Closet creaked, came back with his deer rifle held low. The way you carry a tool you've respected your whole life, not a threat, just a fact in his hand. "You boys have certificates?" he asked, voice, even like a level pressed to a board then. You got a warrant, and the space between those questions and their silence filled with birds until those men packed up so fast they forgot how to look. Important tailgate dust gone. Earl never changing expression as he said, "That's 6. And I realized I'd been living in the middle of a chessboard. Someone else had been moving on at night. I took their flyer to the county land office because I wanted straight lines. Not HOA lore. Angela spun the monitor and found our parcel set. The state requires 30 days written notice for watershed evaluations, and there should be consent on file. Then pulled up a signature that was supposed to be mine, and looked like somebody had practiced my name on a napkin. And my stomach did that elevator drop everyone knows, but nobody admits. That's when the salesman showed up with cologne and a handshake. Tyler Cross, Green Ridge. Holdings, like we'd been friends. And I'd just forgotten he tried to sell me on stewardship and property values. Good for everyone. You know the song, but when I asked who gave them the right to be on our creek, he changed the subject to market trends. Angela slid the statute across the screen like a judge and said there was no notice on file and the consent would need verification. Tyler's smile got tight and he pulled out a retroactive consent form like a Band-Aid for a broken leg. "Just a formality," he said, and I pushed it back and said, "Above board starts with asking which made him laugh. The way a car door laughs when it won't shut all the way. I knocked doors after that, because power doesn't grow in a vacuum." Somebody signs. Piper on Cedar Lane poured lemonade and showed me the neighborhood stewardship petition she'd signed. Buried fine print. Granting survey access to any HOA-approved consultant. Her eyes went glassy as she said, "That is not what Lila told me. Lila Morton being our HOA president, and a widow with a soft voice and a sharper plan. At the Riveras, I got honesty with arms crossed. Yes, we signed. Yes, we want values to spike. That's the game. And at Mr. Lang's corner, I got a shaky finger. And you're the problem. Go back where you came from. Which is wild when where I came from is this dirt under our boots. Back home, someone had replanted a red flag by our mailbox with a note that said, "This isn't over." So I called Lila, demanded an emergency meeting. She tried to mother me, and I read her the statute. And Thursday, we filled the community center that always smells like coffee and old arguments. I came with a thumb drive and receipts. Lila started with landscaping bids, like we were there to talk mulch, then eased into misunderstandings online and a rogue board member we had never met. I walked to the projector and got static, like a snowstorm. Chords looked fine. Power light, glowing, image, refusing to exist. Lila's smile got sweet. "Technical difficulties happen," she said. "Maybe that's a sign to stop rumors." And the room was slipping until Earl spoke from the doorway without moving an inch. "Who signed away the creek and the air changed?" He passed down a document. "Like you pass communion transfer of water rights from individual owners to Greenridge. Filed 6 months ago. With consents attached nobody gave." Then the projector remembered itself and showed 2 maps side by side. The original survey with Willow Run as our border, and a corrected map where the line had slid 30 feet south. Like someone bumped the table and hoped we wouldn't notice. Next to it, that counterfeit consent with my name hooked wrong, and the murmurs became questions, became heat. I asked Lila on mic why nobody got the required 30-day notice. She went for righteous and said the timeline was urgent. We had to expedite. Yeah, that happened. A confession. Dressed as efficiency phones came out. Someone went live. And when we got home that night, I found our lockbox open and the original 1969 boundary map. Gone, titles untouched. Insurance untouched. The kind of theft that writes you a note in what it leaves behind. I hired a lawyer the next morning because rage needs a backbone, not a slogan. Naomi Brooks took one. Listened to Lila's we had to expedite and started a list that felt like a plan. Injunctive relief, fiduciary breach fraud. And then I did a thing I'm not proud of and not sorry for. Emailed Greenridge, pretending to be a small investor, curious about eco-hospitality. Tyler mailed me a pitch deck with glossy renderings and maps that matched our neighborhood down into Ms. Piper's old Cottonwood Willow Run. Nature retreat cabins, and a spa and a 9-hole, low-impact golf course, irrigated by our creek. The timeline claiming assessments completed 18 months ago, which is interesting, considering Lila only became president 8 months ago, so either they finish before they start, or the starting was never the point. I started noticing a black SUV in places that make you ask yourself if you're paranoid or awake. The feed store lot tucked by the billboard at the highway turn. And I decided I was done playing in rooms where someone else controlled the light. I put my phone on a tripod, angled to see the garden. The back gate, the bend in the creek. And when they came again, we would all watch together. They showed up Tuesday at sunup, like guilt is allergic to lunch, 4 men this time. More gear, more confidence. I went live, and the chat did what the chat does. Call the cops, get their faces. Don't get yourself hurt. The leader pulled out a folder with a consent perched right on top. The same forgery, just cleaner. And I said for the camera and for his eyes that it was fake and we'd filed complaints. He started reciting phrases like watershed mandate and regional partnership, and I started translating them out loud into trespass. Tyler rolled up with a security guy whose biceps got hired before his license. When I moved toward a tripod they'd spiked in our bank. The guard moved toward me, and right there, the old version of me that used to take the hit went quiet, and the current one kept my feet planted. But I didn't have to test it because Earl walked down the slope like he was going to the mailbox. Stopped 20 feet out, it said. "You're trespassing. Leave now." Calm, like a clock, the guard took another step, because movies told him to, and Earl lifted the rifle and fired one shot into the air, a warning. With a period at the end, the sound cracked through the live feed, and the viewer count spiked like a heart monitor. Tyler yelled that they were calling the police, and I said thank you, like he had just offered to carry my groceries. Sirens wove into the birds, and I handed the first officer a folder with more tabs than a choir book. Kept the camera wide, so the whole choreography got recorded. The questions, the stumbles, the part where a badge has to say out loud. What everyone already knows: no valid permits, no guard license in our county. And Tyler's name lit up the radio with outstanding warrants out of other states. The chat threw exclamation points like confetti as they cuffed him under the cottonwoods, and the creek clapped at the rocks like somebody finally kept time. After that, the story ran itself. Our little live stream hit the Pine Hollow Gazette, the Birch City station. Then a national slot that loves a clean villain and a practical hero. Green Ridge Froze Projects. Investigators found irregularities that are only irregular if you call forgery a curveball. The HOA held a vote, and Lila sat on stage with a smile that looked like it had been ironed and stapled, and the hands rose against her in a wave. You can feel in your stomach charges followed. Naomi filed suit. The former clerk who revised our map got picked up 3 states away, and the neighborhood did something I didn't expect it gathered. We grilled by Willow. Run kids ran with red paint stripes like war stories they don't know yet. Piper hugged Earl so tight he had to pat for air, and my granddad taught me how to keep what we'd just won, where to file annual confirmations, how to store originals, flat and dry, how to make a paper trail so thick the next smooth talker has to hack through a forest just to see our fence. We buried a time capsule under the big oak copies of the orders. A laminated map. A penny from this year, 1 empty casing because symbols carry what speeches drop. Is it over? Maybe no more. Crews, no more flags. The creek sound is back to what it's always been, but last week, a drone buzzed over the garden at dawn and zipped toward the highways before I got outside. Could have been a kid. Could have been a survey. Could have been the part of me that still flinches when paper lies. Show up wearing ties. And that's the debate I'll leave with you. When is stewardship a shield, and when is it a sword? When do property values mean community? And when do they mean someone else's exit plan? Was the warning shot too far, or just far enough? And what would you have done with a deputy calling your home a civil matter? While strangers measure your creek, tell me where you stand. Tell me what you've seen in your neighborhood. Drop your stories. Push back on mine. If you need to and if you want more, told plain and steady from somebody who has paced the porch and handed over the folder and let his hand stop shaking on camera. Hit like, hit subscribe. Share this with anybody who needs a reminder that lines are real and worth defending.